When you think of the world's greatest universities, what names pop into your head? Harvard, maybe? Oxford? Stanford? Of course. But what if I told you that 1,500 years ago, there was an institution that dwarfed them all, an absolute ocean of knowledge that was the intellectual center of the ancient world? Today, we're going to explore the incredible story of Nalanda.
Just to put this into perspective, while the world's most famous universities are, centuries old, Nalanda was thriving back in the 5th century. It wasn't just an ancient university, it was pretty much the global university, long before the institutions we look up to today even existed.
But you gotta understand, Nalanda was so much more than just buildings and classrooms. It was a radical idea. It was a place where the search for knowledge was treated with this almost religious reverence, a real beacon of light in a world that was often, pretty superstitious.
So its story kicks off in the 5th century, right during the Gupta dynasty, which many call India's golden age of arts and science. It was founded by King Kumaragupta I, and it just instantly became a magnet for the greatest minds on the planet. For centuries, it was the undisputed epicenter of learning, no question.
And just look at this. Look at the sheer global diversity here. This was not some local school. Students were flocking to Nalanda from China, Japan, Korea, Tibet, Indonesia, Persia, even as far as Greece. Can you imagine a classroom where all these different cultures came together, creating this incredible hub, all for the single cause of learning?
And getting into this intellectual brotherhood? Oh, it was not easy. In fact, the entrance exam was notoriously difficult. They say it was harder than getting into an Ivy League school today. But get this. They weren't just testing what you already knew. They were testing your curiosity, that burning desire to know. Only the most inquisitive minds were ever granted entry.
And the curriculum? It was just astonishingly advanced for its time. They weren't just sitting around debating philosophy. They were performing advanced surgery, they were mapping the stars, and they were even researching concepts that we think of as totally modern, like earthquake prediction and climate change research. This really gives you a sense of just how far ahead of the curve they were. The scholars at Nalanda knew the Earth was round and that it orbited the sun. This was common knowledge there in the 5th century. It would take Europe another 800 years before Copernicus would prove the exact same thing. Just think about that gap. So where did they keep all this knowledge? Well, it was housed in the very heart of the university. At its center stood this legendary structure known as Dharmagunj, or the Mountain of Truth, the biggest and most comprehensive library in the entire ancient world. Now, this library wasn't just some big room with books. No. It was a 9-story tall complex, basically a skyscraper of knowledge, literally reaching for the heavens. And inside those 9 stories, 900,000 books. And you have to remember, this was way before the printing press. Every single one of those 900,000 volumes was a unique, handwritten manuscript, painstakingly copied and collected over centuries. And here's a rule that made this library truly one of a kind. To get access to its huge collection, you first had to contribute a new text of your own. So every reader was also a writer. Every student was also a teacher. This whole system made sure the library wasn't just a dusty old archive, but a living, breathing, constantly growing organism of human knowledge.
For 700 years, this incredible dream flourished. But what takes centuries to build, it can be destroyed in a moment. The great light of Nalanda was about to be put out by a fire born of pure ignorance.
The year is 1193. An Afghan warlord, a man by the name of Bakhtiyar Khilji, and his army are sweeping into the region. Now, Khilji wasn't just a conqueror. He was a man who saw knowledge not as a gift, but as a threat. There's this story that kind of reveals his whole motive. So Khilji gets really sick, and his own doctors can't cure him. As a last resort, a scholar monk from Nalanda is called in. The scholar simply consults a book and prescribes a remedy that heals the warlord. But instead of gratitude, Khilji felt a rage. He was absolutely infuriated that a simple book could hold more power than a sword, and he decided right then and there to destroy the source of that power.
His army descended on the defenseless university. The scholars and monks, people who had dedicated their entire lives to learning, were slaughtered. And then he gave the final, soul-crushing order to set fire to the Mountain of Truth, the great library of Dharmagunj. The fire was so enormous, fueled by nearly 1 million irreplaceable texts, that it just burned and burned and burned. The library of Nalanda was on fire for 3 continuous months.
Can you even imagine that? For 3 solid months, the sky was dark with the smoke of humanity's collective wisdom turning into nothing but ash. It wasn't just paper that was burning. It was history, it was science, it was medicine and art from all across the ancient world. And with it, a future that could have been.
It's a question that still haunts historians today. What knowledge was lost forever in that fire? What secrets of our past? What scientific discoveries? What forgotten philosophies just vanished in those flames, setting human progress back by centuries? We'll never know.
The physical university was gone, turned to rubble and ash. But you know what? The story doesn't end there. Because while you can burn a building, you absolutely cannot destroy a dream. For over 800 years, the ruins of Nalanda just stood there, this silent monument to a lost golden age. But then, in 2014, the government of India decided to resurrect that dream. A new Nalanda University was established right near the ancient site.
And that, right there, is the ultimate lesson of Nalanda. Khilji thought he had erased it from history, but he was so wrong. He destroyed the body, for sure, but the soul, that relentless human drive for knowledge, it survived. An idea, once it really takes root, can never truly die.
So, in the end, Nalanda's story is this powerful warning about just how fragile knowledge can be, and how ignorance really is the single greatest threat to human progress. But it's also a story of incredible resilience, a testament to the fact that the dream of learning, after all this time, is once again alive.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty profound thought to chew on. If that library had never burned, if that 800-year gap in progress had never happened, how much further along might we be? Just how different and maybe how much better would our world be?